Welcome everybody, this is Tap Out Talk. I'm your host, Bryan, the Hype, Ballard, and I'm back with the AEW Battle of the Belts results and thoughts. January 8th, 2022. Location, Bojangles Coliseum in the great Charlotte, North Carolina. Our commentators for the evening are going to be Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, and Excalibur. And this is meant to be the Battle of the Belts, a quick, short, extra weekend fight night style pay-per-view like WCW and Clash of Champions many, many years ago. Does AEW's Battle of the Belts live up to the bill that it's meant to be? Without further ado, we're going to go over the first one, and let's see what our results and thoughts are. Let's get in. So we start off. The show starts off pretty quick, and we actually get the very first matchup and championship affair of the evening, and that is none other than the interim TNT Championship up for grabs with Dustin Rhodes going against Sammy Guevara in our Saturday Night Fight Night. So this interim title is basically we have on the line. And we got Dustin Rhodes entering the ring with Arn Anderson and also a record of 32-13 in AEW at the time. We have Sammy Guevara entering next, and he is sporting a record of 10 wins and 2 losses. The referee for the evening in this matchup is going to be the ever-popular Aubrey Edwards. And give you a little background on this matchup and why it's happening. During the Holiday Bash episode of Rampage on December 25th, 2021, Cody Rhodes defeated Sammy Guevara to win his record 3rd AEW TNT Championship. Well, on January 3rd, 2022, AEW announced that the two would have a rematch for the championship at the Battle of the Belts. However, on January 7th episode of Rampage, it was revealed that Cody Rhodes was not medically cleared to compete at this time, and instead, his brother, Dustin Rhodes, would face Guevara at the event to determine the interim TNT Championship. In the update posted to his Instagram, Rhodes says that he had been in contact with family who had tested positive for COVID-19 at the time, thus requiring him to quarantine. This matchup will be the very first time that AEW has ever claimed an interim champion in the history. We'd find that would be more common as the years moved ahead. David Crockett of David Crockett Promotions was ringside to present the belt to the winner, so it was a nice little touch for those classic Carolina fans. This was a new title as TNT champion. Cody Rhodes was missing again due to those coronavirus issues. Arn Anderson is there with Dustin, again, as mentioned, and respect is shown to him. And as they start to go out, there's an arm drag immediately to Sammy, and it takes him right down. That's fine, though, because Guevara, who grabs a hip toss and gets kicked away to give us a standoff. They stare at each other in the ring for a little bit. They run the ropes, and Dustin needs a breather, basically because he's a lot older than Sammy, and you could tell they're playing into the age versus the young up-and-comer. Sammy flips over him a few times before knocking Dustin out. There's a whip to a barricade on the outside at this point, and Dustin again, but basically he comes back with some chops. There's a pile driver on the floor to leave Sammy laying, but he beats the count as we take a break and we cut to commercial. Back then with the action afterwards, and back with Dustin hitting a power slam and hammering away in the corner. Dustin ends up monkey flipping and is blocked through, and Sammy sends him to the outside, setting up a heck of a double springboard dive. Back in though, we get a cutter is countered, allowing Dustin to hit the crossroads for a 1 and a 2. Dustin's code red gets the 2 as well, and he goes up to the top, only to get pulled into the GTH for a near fall. Q, at this point, Fuego del Sol comes from underneath the ring with a table. Basically just because for no reason, I guess. But Arn chases him off, allowing Dustin to hit a Canadian Destroyer off the apron and through the table in a nice little spot in the matchup. There's something that's even scarier than the match itself. That's only good for 2. And then Dustin, actually that pin again only got a 2 count like I mentioned. Dustin hits the back-to-back crossroads in what looks to be like an old school Tiger Driver. And it's countered into a roll-up for a 2. The pinfall reversal sequence is on until Sammy gets a sunset flip for the pin and the title, the interim title, and the first ever AEW Interim Championship. And then we get the TNT title win for Sammy Guevara at around the 16-minute mark. So at this point, Dustin hands off the title, gives it to Sammy as Aubrey Edwards claims him the winner. And in post-match here, we get Daniel Garcia jump to the ring, ready to fight Guevara, and then they actually get their interaction broken up. And Sammy then, in an interview backstage, issues a challenge to Daniel Garcia on Dynamite. So a good, fun match to again witness history being made, not only a TNT championship but an interim championship. So I like this as a little quick opener. And you can tell these shows are meant to be quicker, shorter. And I thought, this was just a good one to start with. So let's get on to our second match of the night, which was coming right up after the challenge from Sammy. And we've got what is the FTW title with Matt Sydal versus Ricky Starks, who is accompanied by Powerhouse Hobbs as the champion. Sydal enters the ring with a 23-12 record into this contest, and Ricky Starks enters with a very impressive 37 wins and 8 losses. Our referee for this one's going to be Bryce Remsburg. And just to give you a little background, on January 7th episode of Rampage, it was announced that Ricky Starks would defend the FTW Championship against Matt Sydal at the Battle of the Belts. So, also, some fun fact. The actual FTW Championship, or FTW title, was actually known as the Brooklyn title very, very, very many years ago, originally with Taz. So, and then it made its way to ECW later. Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs, basically, they're defending and they get a small package for a fast 2 count. Sydal sends him to the outside in a hurry, and it's a standoff with Hobbs. And as we basically, again, to get cut to another commercial break. Back then, we get Sydal firing off a bunch of kicks to the head and the chest. We get a Super Hurricane Rana, sets up a Michinoku driver for 2 more on Starks as the champ is in trouble. Starks loads up the Rochambeau, but his knee actually gives out, allowing Sydal to kick him in the head. The Lightning Spiral gets a 1 and a 2 and nothing. And so it's the two rope Meteora with Starks' foot needing the ropes to escape. Back up, and it's a spear into the Rochambeau and a retain of that title by Ricky Starks at the 9-minute mark of this matchup. So once he, of course, with the Rochambeau, Ricky Starks is getting the win. Post-match, Hobbs comes in and goes after Sydal, but Lee Moriarty, shout out Lee Moriarty, lovely's work, and Dante Martin even run in for the save. Dante Martin was really hot at this point in his AEW career, and since then it's kind of cooled off. But another little fast-paced matchup meant to break up the bookends of this show from the opening matchup with Sammy and into our next matchup, which we're going to get to here in a moment. And so, real quick before we get to that moment, I want to say thank you guys for sharing, and subscribing here at Tap Out Talk, and just being part of the program, being part of the interactions that I get to have and share with you guys as wrestling fans. But let's get on to Battle of the Belts. So at this point, we've got Dr. Britt Baker in our main event defending her women's championship against the original AEW women's champion Riho, from the inaugural champion to go against the current head of the division in Dr. Britt Baker. So Britt Baker enters this matchup with a record of 19-2, and Riho enters this matchup with an AEW record of 23 wins and 5 losses. Our referee is going to be Paul Turner. And just to give you a little history, during the Black Friday episode of Rampage on November 26, 2021, Riho defeated AEW Women's Champion Dr. Britt Baker in what was called a Black Friday deal match to earn a future championship match. On December 17th, the title match was scheduled for Battle of the Belts, and that's where we are and how we got here now. In the matchup, we got Riho, who is challenging Baker, and Baker has Jamie Hayter and Rebel with her. Riho starts fast and knocks Baker to the floor, where there's a big dive that takes Rebel out. And that's enough for Baker to get in a shot of her own. But Hayter is annoyed at Baker for checking on Rebel. A table is set up, but Riho uses the distraction to take out Baker and Hayter. Back in the ring then, and Baker knocks her hard into the corner and stomps away at her. Boom, boom, boom. And we just basically at this point we get a commercial break. We come back from that commercial break and into the action with Riho hitting a double stomp for a 1 and a 2, and a running knee strike rocks Baker again. We get a 619. Shout out Rey Mysterio, and we get a 2 count for that measure, and then we hit a half crab to keep Baker just in a little bit of trouble. Riho goes up to the top, but Rebel pulls Baker away before Riho can dive, and that's fine because Riho, who hits a double stomp on the Rebel to take her out of the element, and then the same double stomp misses Baker through, and an air raid crash gets a 1 and a 2, and that's it for it on Riho. The lockjaw is loaded up, but Riho is crafty and she's kind of scouted, and she slips out into a cover for a 1 and a 2 of her own. Baker isn't happy, and he hits the stomp for 2 more pins. So we're getting a lot of pins back and forth with these ladies just going at it. Hayter throws the belt into the ring, and Rebel hands it to Baker, which is enough to eject Rebel. And then Riho sends Baker to Hayter and grabs a bridging Northern Lights suplex for a 1 and a 2. And Baker kicks her in the face and hits another stomp for 2. The lockjaw goes on. The submission move is in. Riho immediately taps at the 12-minute and 49-second mark in this matchup, ending a successful title defense for Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. And if this one is a brutal submission, as you guys can see here, with the mandible claw, aka the lockjaw fingers in, along with the lockup of the arms and the shoulders. So, post-match, we get Rebel and we get Hayter arguing over who gets to hand the title to Britt Baker at the end of the show. It eventually is Jamie Hayter, who we'll learn is going to be a future champion in AEW. She hands her the title, and then at that point, they all celebrate. And Britt Baker looks at the camera. She cheers as the title with the camera. And that is how we go off the air for AEW Battle of the Belts, the inaugural first ever one. So I want to ask you guys, what are the final thoughts of this? What do you guys think of Battle of the Belts? Is this the equivalent of Clash of the Champions? Is this meant to be that? Or is this just a little something to help get us through the weekend, and you might turn it on and watch it for about the 45 minutes that it's worth? So, we've got our results for this evening. Again, Sammy Guevara beating Dustin Rhodes with a sunset flip. We've got Ricky Starks beating Matt Sydal with the Rochambeau. And we got Britt Baker defeating Riho, the inaugural champion, with the lockjaw submission. Some of the aftermath to Battle of the Belts. After this show was off the air, and then as we went on with the AEW programming, we got Cody Rhodes, who was actually ended up being cleared to wrestle later, and he challenged Sammy Guevara to a ladder match to determine the undisputed TNT championships. The match occurred during the Spring Beach Break episode of Dynamite on January 26, 2022, where Sammy Guevara defeated Cody Rhodes to become the undisputed champion. Well, guys, that's everything I got for you, and I just want to say thank you. Hope you enjoyed this quick preview of Battle of the Belts, and I'll be back to do all the rest of them as well. But for now, we like to say around here, what? Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and it's not goodbye, but it's game over.